Welcome to Bold Talk series, where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have short one-on-one conversation with Anna Högberg Jin, founder at Valiant Game Studio. Anna, great seeing you, and welcome to our Bold Talks special edition for top finalists. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for joining me, and congrats again for taking the top finalist for Bold sixth edition. And looking forward to seeing you in Lisbon in a few weeks' time. Well, time comes very fast, so truly looking forward to it. But let's first dive with some questions that I have prepared here for you that I want to know, and for also the listeners, the people who are watching this, to know more about like what you're doing. So first, give us about your journey and what Valiant Game Studio is and how you got in this journey.
All right, yeah. So Valiant Game Studio is an independent game development company, and we focus on making meaningful and sort of wholesome games that have some form of message to them and are really sort of inviting to our players. I've been running this company for going on 8 years now, and I've been personally working with games for going on 14 years. So it's been quite a journey. And like I said, making games and making them accessible to everyone has always been very close to my heart. So I'm really grateful to be able to keep doing that with Valiant Game Studio.
Oh, that's amazing. Um, Obviously, the I understand like you do a number of different games. You have this is your own games as a product. Uh, what does what sets you apart from others in terms of direct competitors, and how do you maintain that competitive edge?
It's a really good question. So we are sort of part of a almost like a movement within the games industry right now, which is wholesome games and cozy games. Because you might get an idea when you hear games what they are. You usually think about people in a basement with hoodies, but games are so much more, and they can be so diverse. And we are sort of part of this new movement that make more colorful, wholesome, and approachable games that can be played by basically anyone. Because we want to invite more people into the games industry. So we're looking quite sort of broadly at who our target audience are, and want to sort of invite more people into gaming.
Yeah,
So that's a little bit what sets us apart, I suppose.
yeah. Well, it's like when I look at games, like even grandmas love playing games. So
Yeah.
uh, the only thing that I'm thinking, like, okay, what happened to any adult, like when we grow up and we stop playing less? And so I think, it's a really a way what we humans are. Like we always want to be playful. So gaming is such a such a huge industry, but also very competitive, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, like just like you said, like it's sad that we sort of lose that sort of playful sense when we get older. Well, many people do. Like when I go to conferences and show our games to people, like maybe a parent with a child. So often the child is really excited and wants to try the game, where the parent is like they really want to make sure that I know that they don't know anything about games, but then they have amazing questions and they're willing to learn, and they want to sort of you know they are excited once you start talking to them and sort of get the questions out of them and so on. So I think we've just somehow so many people think that they shouldn't like games, but I think it's like 3 billion people play games in the world. Like everyone does play. It's just weird that we feel like we shouldn't, or maybe we
Yeah,
only play games on our phone in big quotation marks. So I think that's sad. So I want to invite more people to play games. And yeah,
nice.
and it is a
And
very competitive industry, like you said as well. So it's yeah, it's an
yeah,
exciting
we're
industry to be in.
talking about competition, right? You have the competition is it's very big, and obviously the uh, I'm not sure. I mean, you're in Sweden, right? So
Yeah,
Sweden,
that's right.
it's has a lot of gaming companies, but these companies are all over the world.
Yeah.
Now, how do you how do you what type of obstacles have you faced, and how do you overcome these obstacles, given the fact that there's very competitive, and also scaling the business is not easy, right? So
It's definitely a challenge. And I think because it's an industry that's B2C, like we need to understand what our players want. We need to always stay up to date with the latest trends. And since it is a digital medium, the trends change overnight. And like, especially what kids want, if you're catering to a younger audience, especially as an adult, it's very hard to keep track of sometimes. So you have to sort of always keep an ear to the grindstone and always like try to be up to date with everything, to ensure that you're successful and you reach your target audience. So that's really a challenge. And of course,
mm,
hand in hand in that with that is also the marketing. How do you reach out because it's so competitive? How do you break through the noise? I wouldn't say that I have the golden bullet to that. We always have to adapt and we have to try new things and stay up to date with what's the social media people are using right now. How do you talk on that platform and so on.
yeah.
So, but if you like a challenge, if you like to live in a sort of an industry where you have to always change and always find a new approach, then the games industry is a good place to be in.
Nice. Now, obviously, every industry it's going through some massive disruption and changes, evolving, and so some of them are moving fast, some of them are slower, but they're all being disrupted. Um, Obviously, AI, in every single conversation, and it has to appear there. A VR component is also becoming quite common in a lot of the conversation, spatial computing, and so on. How do you see the industry evolving in the next, 3 to 5 years? And how are you positioning yourself for that future?
I mean, just like you mentioned, AI is always part of the conversation. In the games industry, as an optimist, I hope that we will do it responsibly. I mean, we have been using AI in the games forever. That's
Mm.
nothing new. But also, AI is used more and more as a tool to actually make the games. I just hope that we find a way to do that responsibly and don't replace people with AI. But I think we are having quite mature conversations around that in the games industry. So that's just here's to hoping. But we have seen, not unlike in the film industry and other industries, that like the really, really massive project aren't always doing as sort of, they haven't been the same kind of sort of reliable money maker, if you will, as they might have been in earlier years. We see the same in the games industry. So we might see a shift away from the really, really big projects and maybe more like a little bit smaller projects. So I think hopefully it could be another sort of heyday for what we call indie games, smaller titles that are maybe a little bit shorter, a little bit more bespoke. Because once again, players are so diverse now. Everyone plays games. So I think more and more games that are kind of niche maybe to a specific audience.
Yeah.
And to keep up with that, I mean, we are a small company. That's not going to change, I don't think, anytime soon. So it's just a matter of staying up to date with what are those trends and trying to listen to what our players want, and
Yeah.
stay up to date with the new tools and everything.
Well, I mean, there's this phrase to say, "Small is the new big," right? So the
Yeah.
big companies are being disrupted, and the small, they have that strength to go in the territories that the big companies are not willing to, right? So
Mm,
it's a special time that we're living. And again, like I'm all with you. Like, I truly don't like seeing the AI trying to replace a human factor, but if the AI helps augment that, I think this would be a wonderful place to live and to be
mm.
around, and we're able to play more games, right?
Exactly. We want to play more games and less, do the boring stuff. So I think AI can replace the boring tasks that we don't want to do. I think it's wrong to make AI, for example, replace making art or making music because that's the things people want to do. We
Exactly.
want to be able to be creative. So let AI do the just boring stuff. That's just,
Let it do
the,
its magic, right? And so let the humans
exactly.
like be humans.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Now, Anna, obviously, growth, culture in a company heavily depends on the leadership, right? And so, what's one leadership lesson you wish you had learned early in your career when you started Valiant?
Also, a very good question. What I've found quite successful right now is actually having a distributed team and working with people who aren't full-time employees of the company.
Mm.
So working with freelancers and working with sort of a network of contributors has actually worked really well. And there are so many companies that are now like, oh, you have to come back into the office, you have to work full time, you have to do this and that. This at least like 2 days a week you have to be in office. And for some companies, that might be the right approach. In the games industry and working the way I've set up Valiant, that's not necessary and has, in fact, I found the collaborators in other parts of the world and other parts of the country that I wouldn't have been able to work with if I didn't have this setup. So I think
Yeah.
um, that we learn how to build a company and how to build a team, and you should have an office and you should have it certain ways. But I don't think that's necessarily true for every company. Of course, every company is different, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
How do you keep the culture, uh, making the team dynamics, given the fact that you're not in one place? You know, is there anything that you do to keep that team dynamics? People not meeting for maybe never. I mean, we have, for example, in our case, like we work with some people that we never met before, and they've been around with us. And for us, the team dynamics that we see is like making sure that we keep them aligned all the time, and we focus on what matters to them and try to
Mm.
fulfill that. Do you have any ideas on your end, like how you do it?
Also, a very good question. I think it starts already before recruiting that you find people that really align with sort of your goals already from the beginning, or they have, if it's an artist in my case, or if it's a programmer or whatever it is, that they really you vet them properly beforehand so that you sort of try and foresee any potential, I don't know, culture issues beforehand.
Mhm.
But of course, also diversity is important. So, like, you should have some people that don't think exactly like you in your team, of course, as well. But otherwise, I think just having an open conversation and always trying to be as quick as possible with feedback, and I always try to work with positive feedback. So, like, okay, this didn't necessarily work the way that we intended, or uh, this delivery wasn't just exactly what I had in mind. Could we please do this again so we can reach this goal? So never say that anything is about the person. Always sort of take the person out of the equation and focus more on what happened, delivery, how can we do this differently next time so that we together achieve success.
Yeah.
So I think we all want to do great things, and we just have to find a way to do it together. And always sort of assume that people have that mindset. I think is very helpful. Sort of assume good intent in a way.
Yeah. Together is more fun. Let's
It
just put it
is,
this way,
yeah.
right? So
Mm.
that's the way to go. That's how God created us to do things together. Now, Anna, if you could disrupt one aspect of the gaming industry, what would it be?
I think it would disrupt financial options because especially as a sort of smaller company and a company that makes something that isn't necessarily in the mainstream in the same way that people expect, or like doesn't make the games that people expect, it can be quite hard to find funding options because making games is very expensive in some cases. So giving people more access to get funding to try
Mhm.
ideas out. It can just be a small thing in the beginning, just to try ideas out, to be bold and just do new things and see what works with the audience. That would be really great because unfortunately there are some hurdles and there's some gatekeeping when it comes to who gets to make games. The tools are mostly sort of distributed, like easy to access these days. They're sort of democratized in a way,
Yeah.
but you also need to feed your cats or whatever it might be. You have
Yeah.
you need to pay your bills. So I just wish that there were more options for more companies to be successful in this industry.
Got you. Now, Anna, what does the word bold mean to you?
I mean, bold is almost the same word that I use as my company name, Valiant. It's being brave, it's being brazen, and not be afraid to go your own way. I think, and to want to put your mark on the world, even if it might be hard or it might be intimidating at times, still go for it. So I think maybe your bold and my valiant is sort of the
Yeah,
same vision in a way for a company.
yeah, that's true. Well, Anna, great having you this conversation. Looking forward to seeing you in Lisbon. Until then, have a great day. Be great and be bold always. Take care.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.